Hello everyone, I am now in Kashgar, Xinjiang. The one next to me is a brand new G63. This color first asks everyone, do you like it? To be honest, you can tell from this color that it is a 63. Exactly, it's not really any better off-road than the G500. So it's mostly run in cities. So there's gotta be nothing wrong with choosing a really cracked, bright color in the city, right? Why is this in line with the positioning of 63? Because this is the yellow color, and you go outside and you wait. Countless bugsbees. Yee will fly to your car. Seriously speaking, it is best not to choose this bright yellow for the models we go cross-country. So today, as the owner of the last G63, I am going to shoot a pure Xiang version of the new G63 for you. So this video doesn't have much editing or musical fuss. It's more about expressing my own opinion on this car. Also, what is the state of this car now? You guys ready? So let's take a look at the shape of the whole car first. First of all, if you are not the owner, you can't even feel what kind of changes this generation of G63 has. Because in the more than 40 years since the birth of G, his form has never changed. The body shape of the square box, structure of non-load-bearing body, T-frame, these three are a design concept that Big G has been adhering to. So from the outside, the dimensions of the car and a series of data are completely unchanged. Are there some details that maybe even the owner of the car can find very carefully? There are still quite a few, so if you like Big G, take it invisibly and put it on. I feel that I drive this car every day, and I know it very well. And the most obvious change, which you can all see, has to be this inlet at this position on the front bar. What about the previous G63? On this side of its front bar, there are holes that are a bit like fish scales. After the change, first of all, the holes in his fish scales have become even larger, a little like the shape of a diamond. This intake here becomes the sensation of three very large shark fins. I think that's a pretty cool change. Does this vertical mountain pass feel very suitable for our shape? He was the whole thing. I have a big heart. I need air. It's very powerful and fierce. Then many friends of the other 563 may feel that there is a little unclear difference. One is the difference between the horizontal crystal gation and the vertical crystal gation of the vertical plate. Secondly, the crystal gation at this position of the entire front bar is also different. But as for example our lamps, these we have sideways, the whole shape is actually the same. And the other thing is that he has a logo of an apple tree from AMG of Fodderbach, in order to let everyone feel the feeling of Freedom 63 more intuitively. So there's a brand new G500. First of all, you can tell from a distance that it's more of a wild style because it's beyond the mountain. Now it's this horizontal version like I said. But this 500, he chose the Dark Knight kit, so his entire Mercedes-Benz logo and this position are all black. If it is silver, I think it is actually more off-road. I personally like the ordinary silver version of the car logo, and the air intake at the front bar position is also different. This is the logo of a Mercedes-Benz. Of course, in addition to the difference in appearance, there is another biggest difference between the 500 and 63, which is that the new generation of 500 has become an inline 6-cylinder engine, and the G63 still maintains the V8 engine, just adds 48 lightly mixed motors. So the difference between a real 500 and a 63 is inside, take it back. The details have changed, except for what we just said. And it's here that really only people who drive this car every day can see this in more detail. He is for our aerodynamics to serve. The previous one above 63 was slightly different from his shape. So he's sort of perfecting the feel of our whole crash because you know the G63? It's a very straight glass, but it has the same feel as our military vehicles used to have. So it actually has a large impact area. So the purpose of this change now is to have an optimization for our wind noise. The other thing is that the shape here has a certain difference, and it also functions the same as it optimized our wind resistance and wind noise. And there's even a very, very, very subtle contribution to our fuel economy. If you continue to look back, there is also a big change here. Well, from the shape, you feel that it is not much different from the 63 in our last version. There is such a strip, but when you look at it, the feeling of the wind is different. And what does it do? It can put pressure on our car. In the past, everyone knows that the door of the 63 is characterized by miracles. You have to slam the door really, really hard, and he comes out with a very mechanical, raw sound. This is the charm of Big G, but it is also a bug of Big G. Because for girls, I often have to close the door twice to close it. But with this pressure relief port, you can close the door more easily with this car. So you see, I'm basically like this, yeah, it's not closed. Haha, basically using this principle. You can close the door. but he still has that great voice. In fact, the change in appearance is not particularly large. The real change comes in the car. After opening it, the first thing that catches your eye is that it is a red and black color scheme interior. Of course, this car is his standard look. This car is obvious. The paint color is an extra money to choose. Very beautiful titanium gold wheels. 22-inch ones must be selected with extra money. Then there is this other one, which is very low-key, with a little red but not so grumpy such an interior. Please select it as well. Add another one for our installation skills. That is, if the big G seat is red with a large surface, it will be cheaper. And if it is red with a small surface, it will be expensive like this one now. That sounds really nice, right? The sound of bullets loading. What about when we actually start driving? He went a certain number of kilometers. The lock will automatically fall. Caw is also the sound of a bullet being loaded. Really wonderful. Now the new big G car is still retained, which is a very mechanical and practical design. I didn't say change it to wow, this piece becomes a screen. I believe that if the G is replaced by a central control screen, it is estimated that everyone will be disappointed. This car has been upgraded to the latest generation of MBS cars. We can directly touch the screen with our hands. I know this function. Nothing new. All cars can now do it. But the problem is that my car just can't do it. And you're going to give him an answer over this trackpad, and that's actually where we see the interior phone, which is in this central area. Of course, all the buttons are basically our physical case. You can feel the sound of his voice. It's very sophisticated. So he kept the original mechanical aesthetic, which I loved. The last generation, you remember, there were only 3 mechanical differential locks in this position. But now, an off-road quick access button has been added to the 3 mechanical differential locks. There is also a shortcut start button for our driving mode low run finger. These 3 buttons are not just a design change. It's also a pretty big change in function. Let's start the vehicle first. I'm rolling this window down because our exhaust is over there. It might sound a little better that way. Let's feel the cold feeling of this car V8. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. The beast is ready to go. And now it is comfort mode, which is a state where the sound wave is not really turned on. Then we just talked about the shortcut button of this offer. After clicking it with one click, you will enter our off-road interface. And the first thing you can see is this display of one of his active suspension systems. Here we see this angle of our turn. Look, it's 11 degrees now. Here you can only see that at the same time you see there are no force suspensions. So we can see, with active suspension, roughly how much compression and release space each suspension creates. So as to better judge the state of our car, that's actually a very important change on this new G63. It adds an optional active suspension system. After growing this active suspension, does it have an off-road enhancement pack with us? Is it integrated? So now we're looking at our driving patterns as just comfort, custom, sport, and so on. How can we get into this off-road mode? The first is that we have to hang it in our Lawrence state, which must be the end file. Well, let's turn this Laren on and put a differential lock on it. We're officially in our off-road mode. Then our driving mode will directly become Boulevard Sand. And then there's our rocks, 3 different patterns. And also, in this different mode, we can make additional adjustments to the output of our engines, to the suspension. So in fact, from this whole set of technical off-road functions for such an output setting of the vehicle, the off-road capability of this vehicle, the P-file is very strong. However, it also has great limitations in off-road, and because it has an exhaust, our overall throughput will not be as good as the 500. At the same time, because the wheels of our car are bigger, then the tire wall is thinner. Therefore, this set of tires is not suitable for off-road. If we want 63 off-road, it's necessary to change the tires and wheels. However, because it is AMG, so it's also very suitable for more passionate driving in the city. Do you understand such a device? SUV models with a relatively high center of gravity are not suitable for driving with a rack control feeling, right? But I think this is a relatively wrong state. First of all, the seat wraps very well. It's a comfortable seat, but what it is a movable dynamic seat. It can be adjusted at 0 to 10 levels. That is to say, it can be completely flat in this position. It can also fully rise. It also has a dynamic support, and when we wheel to the left, for example, the saucer on my left can pull me from the left. In addition, active suspension on the one hand can make our off-road ability stronger, and on the other hand, its response is also faster. Let our vehicles have a better support when enjoying frame control like this. that also adds a hydraulic anti-tilt feeling to you. That's it. In fact, the biggest effect is to make the vehicle more stable when we drive. I can understand that it is the same as that seat, right? Hey, I think this is very, very vivid. Of course, it's on our suspension, but it's really kind of like this. For example, our vehicle needs to be supported when it turns like this. If we are a traditional dust board, it is, right? It is a mechanical structure. But now, as soon as he recognizes that you're trying to drive, he pops you up. So the force and speed he is pushing are in principle better than the traditional anti-pit rod. So if you really want this G63 to be the AMG, it should be. In fact, these things should be selected. He can accompany you. It's not so delayed. It touches our exhaust. Location go wild. At the same time, if you change a wheel hub, it can also make you enjoy a happier feeling in the city or even in the track. Let's get a feel for his voice now. First, let's adjust this driving mode to S+. Let's just step on 2 feet and feel it. Ghost fire is too easy to step on. Let's just stay where we are. Every foot has. Okay, that's pretty good. Now this car has an electric motor, but what's amazing is that he can do it much more easily than my car. I think his voice is better than my car, but what it's like to drive this car, just a few words. First of all, from an urban perspective, although the optional suspension has an electric motor, but our driving experience in cities is not that different. There's been a significant improvement in off-road capability, but like I said, the G63 itself isn't really built for off-road either. The G500 is even more so. The difference is not particularly obvious, right? Because we can go to the very extreme of this off-road surface. Maybe we need to take 500 to pass, so G63 doesn't have such a usage scenario either. But the car's a lot quieter than before, even if we are in S+ mode, and I noticed that you can't really hear what I'm hearing inside the car, which is kind of crazy. It's just not as obvious as the boiling sound of my car, but he's outside the car. His tempering sound is loud and loud. I don't know if this is a good change or a bad change. Personally, I would prefer to be able to transmit more sound in the car since I chose a square-in car. I've put the wind noise behind me, but obviously he's still trying to create a more luxurious atmosphere, make the car as quiet as possible. But the sound of the sound wave is still arranged for you. To sum up clearly, first of all, the G63 is now with the. Compared to the previous generation, the main change is that the engine is still an 8-cylinder. But what about the addition of an SG 48-volt light hybrid motor? So we added active suspension, more to improve our performance, comfort, and so on. What's more, there have been minor changes to the appearance. Using the latest MBX system, our screens are touching. Then there is the location of the central control. I just forgot to mention, he took the old IWC watch, the real watch, and turned it into an electronic watch. This is basically such a change from all AMGs now. Maybe it's for more fashion. At the same time, I think it is definitely necessary to reduce costs. After all, a real watch is worth tens of thousands of dollars there, right? In addition, from the comfort point of view, such as the silence in the car, then our doors are better closed, and these are improved. At the same time, the sound wave is more beautiful than I personally thought before. Then these are actually the changes of this new Big G. That's in my overall experience. The biggest change that really fell into our use was the active suspension. But you need to choose. Another is the latest MBS in the car, which can be controlled by this system. But I can bear it. So in fact, as the owner of the previous G63, although I love this new G, but not enough to make me want to change cars. Yeah, so that's how I feel about the whole thing. But at the same time, these active suspension introduced by the new G are also good. It's comfortable, etc. These enhancements also make me very excited about this new GB. So seriously, I'm a little bit curious about the electric Big G right now. There is a little bit of wanting to consider the feeling of oil and electricity dual support. But this is just my preliminary idea. After all, the electric one is quite expensive. Then I don't know if everyone has a good understanding of the new G63 after watching this video. In fact, as a Big G, it has always been a classic, and the value preservation rate has always been very online. I think it's a lot of people's dream car. I actually bought Hardcore Prophecy all the way from the Wrangler. Then the last thing I bought was this G63. He can't actually say he'll be my last car, but I believe this car will stay with me until the end, because my love for him is very high. So if you have the power and G is a dream of yours, I think it's better to shoot early. The current G500 has been replaced with a 6-cylinder, right? Who knows the next generation of Big G and what will happen to our engines? Although this car of the big brand has a little feeling that it is not up to date with the times. But it's still a dream in the heart of a friend who likes cars. And it gives you that kind of pleasure when it's on. So I think V8, definitely a luxury. But if you have the ability, it's better to get it in the bag as soon as possible. So this is the video of this issue. Thank you for watching. If you like it, don't forget to interact with me a lot. See you next time.